Holy smokes, they were masonists?
Yeah, they were Masons.
Okay, let me try that again.
Long story short, made a really poor decision. I got a DUI, got in trouble, drinking and driving, and I lasted another 30 days down there after that. And I said, I need to come home. I need some discipline in my life. So I came home. He was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer. I still get emotional thinking about it. It's my best friend, it's my dad, it's my mentor, it's my business partner, it's my hero. That was the turning point in my life. 23 years old, super impressionable. My dad was only 52 years old.
I know that's a huge pivotal moment in the life of a man, especially a young man, 23 years old. There's a lot of thoughts about mortality. Your dad was only 52, so it's got to be just horrific at the time. I know you've grown a lot since then. I'm sure there's many times where you want to reach out to him and say, Dad, what would you do? Or give me some help or whatever. I know I still do. My dad passed in 2009.
I think the greatest leaders have the best mindsets. Great leaders lead by example. I think that they bring great energy to the table, no matter how they feel, because they're the tone setter. I think that great leaders are vision casters, are some people that can just think way bigger than your normal person and then be able to put that into a story that excites people.
Welcome to Unlocking Moves, where we want to cover those key pivotal moments and decision points that really change the lives of successful entrepreneurs and leaders. And I want to hear their stories because I think we learn the most from stories. But I don't want to hear just your glory story, Kyle. I want to hear your gory stories because, as I like to say, the bigger the shit show, the bigger the lesson. My guest today is an entrepreneur who has built a veritable empire in real estate in the Panhandle of Florida. Sunchase is the leading full-service real estate company along the Gulf Coast. And it looks like he pretty much founded it right after college. So we're going to get into that story as well. But before we do, Kyle, you may know that I like to hit my guests up with an off-the-wall question or comment to really keep them on their toes, keep my audience on their toes. You ready for this?
All right, let's hear it.
All right, so this one's actually a layup, but in our previous conversations, I learned that you have 3 boys. You know that I also have 3 boys, although we're in a different stage of life. I've got a 25, 23, and 19-year-old boys, and you have 3 years, 2 years, and 8 months boys. First of all, I got to say there's a special place in heaven for moms and dads of 3 boys. All right, here's my question, and I'm just off the cuff. Tell me what crazy crap you guys got into over the weekend. Did somebody fighting over a Lego? Somebody was sick? Somebody was playing war? You had to referee a fight? Tell me what kind of crazy stuff is in the household of the McGee household right now.
Yeah, great question, and always shenanigans. Funny you asked this. I was just talking with my wife this weekend, and I said, man, if someone had a camera on us and just like in our kitchen, like we would have an instant viral reality TV show. So this weekend, let's see, my mom is actually moving into a house 18 houses down on the same street. So that's kind of fun. But I got a good one. We tear up the golf cart. So I live in a really cool community in Gulf Breeze right outside of Pensacola, and it's very golf cart heavy. And so we just tear up the rubber on the tires on our golf cart. And every Sunday there's a house on the other side of our little cul-de-sac community, probably 3 miles away, and they sell honey, the homegrown honey, out of their front driveway, and it's honor system, and so every Sunday it's a tradition now. In the afternoon after nap time, we go get honey for the week. We like honey in our coffee.
How much honey do you eat?
Well, it's just a little jar, and we put it, my wife and I like it in our coffee. Anyway, it's like one of these little bitty mason jars. Well, I picked up one for my mom, and my middle son, Camden, he just was pitching a fit, had to hold the glass jar of honey, right? The whole golf cart ride. Finally, we fought with him, was like, you know what, for everyone's sanity, we're just let him have it. Next thing you know, 5 minutes down the road, he somehow gets it open and spills half of it all over me and him. And so I'm driving, and all you can do is laugh, right? And I've got I'm dripping in honey, and he's just licking his fingers like in heaven. So yeah, it's definitely madness, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. We'll get into more of those stories as we go. Hey guys, as you've heard, my guest today is Kyle McGee. He is the founder and CEO of Sunchase Companies, which is about a 10-year-old company. They built over 100 homes. They've completed over $30 million in development projects, and now they manage and own over 300 apartment units. Most importantly, Kyle is a man of faith and he's a family man. So Kyle, welcome to Unlocking Moves.
Yeah, honored to be here and honored to get on the other side of the interview chair. You had a great podcast with me a couple weeks or maybe even a month ago. So honored to be here.
I was going to say that. So we were introduced by our mutual friend Mike Ellicott, and I appeared on your podcast, which is called Legacy Builders.
Legacy builders. Yep.
Okay, and tell us real quick where we can find that. I'm not going to rehash that entire interview. I want people to go find it there, but we will dive into a couple topics. But where can I find it?
Yeah, Legacy Builders is across all platforms. It's Legacy Builders with Kyle McGee, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen.
All right, perfect. Well, there's your plug. This episode brought to you by Legacy Builders podcast with Kyle McGee. So, hey, I want to start with your story. We didn't mention that you went to Florida State, so you're a proud Seminole. And it looks like you started Sunchase not quite right out of college, but pretty quickly, maybe a year or two after. So my first question is, were you unemployable? Were you a bad employee? What happened, to make you start your own company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my story starts really two generations before me. My grandpa was a brick mason, and he worked for his brother-in-law for years, decade or so, and then he started his own company here in Pensacola, Florida, as a brick mason. He started laying foundations, and then he started bricking houses, and then got into commercial. So he was a masonry subcontractor. Extremely tough work ethic, and laser focused on his job, right? And my dad followed in his footsteps, and took it up a notch, right? And started playing the game a little bit more. Eventually went from being a masonry subcontractor to a general contractor, commercial general contractor, building schools, prisons, large commercial construction sites here in the Panhandle. And so I was always around entrepreneurship. My mom was a quote unquote stay at home mom. However, she worked in the business. She was the bookkeeper, so all we talked about, really, like the predominant conversation that I can recall growing up, of course, were sports. Like me and my siblings, I'm a middle child, have an older brother, younger sister. We were a big sports family, but it was the predominant conversation was business, right? So I was engulfed in this business conversation from an early stage. 16 years old, we always worked too. 12 years old, I was on construction sites. I used sports as a scapegoat to escape those hot summers, on these construction sites. But we had our fair share in there. And then 14 years old, I had a job. 15, 16 years old, I had my first business. I started a landscape company.
Hey, let me pause you just for a second, because I know you're getting into your story, but let's come back to your dads and your uncles, because it sounds like the American dream. Holy
Right.
smokes, they were masonry.
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 Yeah, they were masons.
They
Yeah.
were mason. Okay, let me try that again. So your dad and your uncle were masons, and then they were able to build up their status, if you will, and become general contractors. And now they're building prisons, and I think you said schools and other large buildings. Man, that is absolutely the American dream.
Yeah, so it was actually my dad and his dad. So my dad and grandpa. And yeah, 100%. I meant like the American dream based off of strictly work ethic. I mean, these guys were savages. I don't know any other way to say it. Getting up at 3:30, 4 in the morning every morning, and getting out there before the sun came up. In the dead heat of summer, we're here in Pensacola, Florida. It gets hot, right? Like 110 degrees hot, and these guys are out there with their crews. So they were business owners, but they were out there in the field every day, and it wasn't like your typical larger contractor that shows up in the morning and kind of like what I do now, right? Shows up in the morning, make sure people are on site, then you go back to the office, you're in the truck or AC all day. No, my dad and grandpa were right hand in hand with their whole crews, which it was the American dream. However, seeing the toll that had on my grandpa and my dad, I knew that I wanted to go a different route. And my dad was very a pivotal role, and I mean the biggest role in my life. And he always taught me and my siblings, and specifically me and my brother, like, hey, I'm going to teach you to use your head and not your back. And so that was a big thing. Like, hey, we're gonna he laid the foundation for my career for sure.
Do that drum roll, bada boom. He laid the foundation. Yeah. All right, perfect. Man, I love that. So it also sounds like he didn't keep it cush for you. Like your ass was out there working in the hot sun as well. Let's go back to your story. So 14, 15, 16 years old. Now you started your own landscape business. You said that's amazing. Tell me
Yeah.
more. Today's episode is brought to you by Chinook Seedery, the best sunflower seeds ever. Available online at chinookseedery.com and Amazon, or wherever you get your seeds, including Buc-ee's, Dick's Sporting Goods, Shields, Love's Travel Stops, Circle K, and thousands of other locations around the country.
Yeah, so as soon as I could drive, I mean, we grew up, hunting and on four-wheelers, golf carts, and trucks at the hunting camp and whatnot. So we always knew how to drive at an early age. And so the day I turned 16, I was backing in a landscape trailer, right, into, my parents' third garage. So we knew how to operate equipment. I had a good buddy of mine who eventually came to work for me in Sunchase, and then now has gone and started his own home building company, Travis Scottstein, one of my dear friends. We're actually about to do a partnership together. It's really cool, full circle story. And my best friend, we started TK Midway Mowers, right? And really, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this, because it wasn't like we were just sun up to sundown working our butt off at 16. We had the sweet spot of just the amount of yards to go. And this is gonna sound bad, but I mean, because we were 16 years old drinking beer, it was just enough money to go buy some beer and go to the beach. So we would line it up to where we have 3 or 4 yards to cut. We'd get up early, knock them out, and then head to the beach and drink some beers.
That's the motivation when you're 16 years old. I had a very similar business with my friends, since we're shouting out friends Craig Scheck-Snyder and Mo Hattier. We had a business that we called Imperial Landscaping, did the same thing, but ours was video games in the beach. It might have been girls in there somewhere, but
Yeah. Yeah. So fast forward a little bit. I had that I've always had that entrepreneurial itch, right? But when I went off to college, I wanted to explore everything, right? So my first job was an internship with a commercial real estate company when I was 18 years old, in between my freshman and sophomore um, years of college. I went ahead and got my real estate license then during that internship. And it was just a local Pensacola commercial real estate company. I was very blessed and fortunate to work with some guys who were doing big deals, and they just kind of had me. I was the grunt, but I got to tag along and look at what they were doing, cleaning up their Salesforce database, all the stuff. Really loved the real estate industry. Actually, let me rewind a little bit. Before that, my dad he liked real estate, but he never did anything with it. He liked it enough to get his real estate license. And I didn't even realize this at the time, but he would pay me to do his continuing education as a high schooler. And so I was subconsciously learning about real estate when I didn't even know what I was doing, just, trying to pass this test to earn $50 or whatever it was. So did that internship, really liked it, but I said, let me go try other things. I did an internship with State Farm Insurance, hated it, liked the people, but hated the industry and the business. So this is not for me. Did another internship, which was with a Fortune 500 company, down a corporate type role, and it was the worst. Like, it did not fit me at all. I was like, I don't see how people can live this lifestyle. Like, sit at a cubicle or a desk, get told your work. It was monotonous. The meetings were slow. It was like, man, I would not be happy in this role. Like, let's just put it plainly.
so I was right. You were unemployable.
Super unemployable. And then I graduated college at 21 years old. I love where I live in Pensacola. I loved growing up here. I loved everything about it. I knew, though, if I moved directly home, then I would never leave and I would have never experienced anything else. So what do? I got a job as a real estate appraiser in Key West, Florida. So I went
Nice.
from Pensacola Beach to Key West for my first job, and it was there was a lot of hard lessons. I was 21 years old. I had graduated early with a finance and management degrees from Florida State, and I was wild, just to put it plainly. I was wild. I was undisciplined. I was a partier, and
You're a
I was
typical
down
21-year-old in Key
yeah.
West.
Yeah, I was down in Key West, Florida, with no friends. I didn't know anyone down there. I had a job as a real estate appraiser in a two-man office that shared an office with these Haitian accountants, and they were like the accountants for the whole island if you were Haitian, and so they would come in throughout the office, and my desk had no window, and I was again the grunt guy, doing all the computer work, and long story short, made a really poor decision. I got a DUI, got in trouble. Um, Drinking and driving, and I lasted another 30 days down there after that, and I said, "I need to come home. I need to go home. I need some discipline in my life." My parents were great parents, super involved in my life, and, yeah, so I came home, got my real estate
Wait,
license.
hold on. Let's pause on that for a second. All right.
Yeah.
So a couple things there. First of all, you're a
I don't
normal
think I've
20.
shared that I don't think I've shared that, publicly, so this is a first.
There you go. Perfect. I have a way of gleaning that from people, all the gory stories. So seriously, there's a couple of things there. One is you're a typical, normal 21-year-old boy, a man, and you experienced in life. And that's what I would encourage all people as they graduate college is go do something different. Don't go do something because you need a job or you have to move home or whatever. Experience life a little bit. In your case, it was Key West. Other people, it might be touring Europe. It might be going to be a ski bum, whatever. Second of all, you got in trouble, and you're not the only person to get in trouble either. The key is, what did you learn from it? I had my own couple of yucks that I have talked about and happy to talk about again, where I got in some trouble, and I learned some very valuable life lessons that you stick to me today, and I'm glad you learned it. It sounds like you learned it for the long haul as well.
Yeah, so 21, definitely I echo those thoughts, like, go experience the world when you don't have anyone dependent on you. However, don't go drink and drive, like, that's dumb. That's just dumb at any point of your life.
Yep.
And so, yeah, picking up there, unfortunately, I didn't really learn my lesson, that's the problem. I didn't go get behind the wheel and drive drunk again, like, I had the whole, um breathalyzer on my car, like, it was a whole deal. I had to go to, DUI school, and it was a definitely humbling thing because I was, I was wild, but I was always a pretty good kid, and I got good grades, and I was, the captains of my sport teams, and, like, I wanted to be successful, and so, but I was the definition of work hard, play harder, probably, and so, I had that work ethic that my parents had instilled in me, and I also had the wildness. But anyway, came home and I activated my real estate sales license. So I was doing real estate appraisal work, and then I said, I'm on the wrong side of this business. I like the real estate business, but I'm an outgoing guy. I'm a people person. I like to, I like sales. And so I said, let me try this real estate sales thing. And I instantly had some success, and I was doing well. I liked it. I was hustling, and I said, I want to do more than just sell real estate. As I mentioned, I come from the construction background. And so end of 2016, first of 2017, I had been in my dad's ear, and I convinced him to partner and buy three lots to build homes on. And my dad was not a home builder. He was in the commercial construction. And so after like 3 months, I mean, I form a business plan, I do all these things. He's like, okay, like, if this is what you want to do, and it's your project, not mine, right? This is the deal. The first house, we bought three lots, and they were directly across the street from my parents' house, so my dad could keep eyes on it, keep tabs on it every day. And he said, the first one you'll get to sell it and get a real estate commission. You have to be here every day. You have to sweep the job site every day. You have to learn. You have to talk to all the subs, vendors, everything. I'm 22 years old at this point. And the first one, if you're there every day and we make a profit, I'll take some of the profit and pay for you to get your contractor's license. The second one, we'll split the profit. Third one, you'll get the profit, and then whatever you want to do with it, we go do it. So I was there every day. It took about 5 months to build this house, and I was there every day learning. Still not learning on the social aspect of it. There's more stories there, which don't want to share all the stories with you, but there was still some hard life lessons that I was learning, but I was a worker. I really was. I loved to work. I had a desire to be successful. I start picking up, books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. I'm on Bigger Pockets, which is a real estate investing forum. I'm reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. All of these like really just transformational books, and I got absolutely addicted to learning and to self-improvement, self-development. I We sold the first house for profit. I got my contractor's license. So here I am, 22 years old, licensed general contractor in the state of Florida, like a super invaluable thing to have, which funny story there. I actually didn't qualify for the general contractor's license. I only qualified for the builder's contractor's license, which means you can only build houses, but they sent me a general contractor's license. So hopefully no one listens to that. But
Hey, let's pause here, Kyle, because there's a lot of very good material there that I want to come back and glean. First of all, you did have a hand up. You had some ability with your dad who backed you on the first deal, and that's perfectly okay. I get a lot of requests from people's kids to meet with them and help them find a job. I love to seed entrepreneurs, and so it sounds like your dad did that, uh, mainly at your urging, right? But a lot of people that I know, people that have kids that are graduating college, and many of them make the wrong mistake. They let them live at home without paying anything. They maybe give them $100,000 or whatever to buy a house to live in. But what your dad did was invaluable. He made you work for it. He made you earn it. He didn't, even with the first house, it sounds like he kept most of the profits. He gave you enough money to get your license, but you had to work your ass off to get to it. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I get from this story is while your dad did seed you, he also made you learn very valuable lessons about business so you could become your own business leader.
this is a great distinction, and I'm really glad that you called this out because there's more to that, right? So he told me the house was the lots were 35 grand for all three of them. They had some wetland issues and there was some hair on them, so it wasn't a significant price for the three lots, $35,000. The house was going to cost $225,000. He made it very clear, like I was on the LLC, but he was the owner, and this was a loan. So this is a $250,000 loan. I'm not gifting you this, like you have other siblings, like I'm not gifting you this $250,000. This is a loan, and you can take the profits if you earn it and go buy more land and figure it out. So I'm glad you called that out because I do see that, and I see friends or acquaintances, and people are trying to do the right thing, and I think that the right thing is to have to earn it, and so. But moving forward, this is where the story kind of shifts. The second house, I'm learning, I'm loving it. I'm still hustling, selling real estate. My full time job is real estate, and
So
I
this is
had
just a side hustle at this point.
that's a
Okay.
side deal, and I'm learning about it. But how I'm making my living is selling real estate for a commission, And I convinced my mom to quit her job and to sell real estate with me, and we were a tag team, and she's got a great personality, very outgoing, knows a ton of people. Still to this day has never wrote a contract. She's like, all right, that your turn. I'm done after the showing, but so I built the second house, still selling real estate. I think we made like 50 grand. So I had a $25,000, pop, which was huge for me at the time, right? Coming up on the end of I guess I was 23 at the time. Well, the third house, we're about 2 months in the project, and my dad and mom come to me, and my dad had been like coughing and like doing some things, and he was super old school, construction guy, tough willed, had gotten out of the construction industry, opened up a gun range. Another story, side note, but they came to me and he was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer. And this is, I still get emotional thinking about it. It's my best friend, it's my dad, it's my mentor, it's my business partner, it's my hero. And he looked at me and I said, "Hey man, you got to fight this. Like, we need you, right?" And um but it was a terminal diagnosis. And so they tried everything, went to the Shans and did all the treatments, and but from the diagnosis to his passing, it was 6 months, and it happened like that. And there was so many that was the turning point in my life. 23 years old, super impressionable. My dad was only 52 years old when he passed, and had just turned 52, so 51, 52. And you know however, we weren't finished with this third home, and or we were just finishing up. There was a lot of lessons learned, through there. And during this, I can remember my dad at the hospital, and we're still working. I'm still. It's not like your life just goes on pause when something like this happens. Like, life still goes on, right? And so I'm still hustling. I had bought a house. The only way I was able to buy a house, because I was a 1099 self-employed. I didn't have 2 years. My dad signed on the note from the um um hospital bed. He had and could barely make his signature, and this was like a month before he actually passed. And this couple, my mom was sitting in an open house. We had this great listing, waterfront house, and this couple came in, really nice couple, and said, "We have this waterfront lot down the street. We really like these houses that were just built, across the street." And she's like, "Well, that was my son who built the house." And they're like, "Oh, well, we want a version of that house built on our waterfront lot." Um, and so she introduced me to him, and I'm like, "Man, you guys are crazy." I'm 23 years old. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just gonna be completely blunt with you. Like, I have a lot of confidence in myself and the ability to figure it out. But what you see right here, these 3 homes, I've got like maybe 50% involvement in these. Like, this last one is really the only one I've done myself. And they took a chance on me, and I built their custom home, bought another lot, and then we can get more into the story, but I'm sure there's something there that you want to unpack.
Oh my gosh, there's so much there. I mean, let's start with the important, biggest piece, and that's your father's passing. I know that's a huge, pivotal moment in the life of a man, especially a young man, 23 years old. There's a lot of thoughts about mortality. Your dad was only 52, so it's got to be just horrific at the time. I know you've grown a lot since then. I'm sure there's many times where you want to reach out to him and say, "Dad, what would you do?" or "Give me some help," or whatever. I know I still do. My dad passed in 2009. So if you want to talk any more about that, I'm happy to, or just remember him fondly.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay. Let's talk about that couple because they took a chance on a 23-year-old man who's, kind of in his own mind a shithead or whatever, but you're not. You're obviously kind of accomplished a lot just in a short period of time. So do you want to shout them out? It sounds like they made a
Yeah.
big move for
Oh,
you.
1000%. Mark and Ruth Stunkel, like, great. I mean, two of the best people that I could have ever honestly built a custom home for, because first of all, they weren't local, and so they only came down like 2 or 3 times during the build, which is another crazy thing to trust this young 23-year-old guy to build their like vacation home, waterfront. So many lessons learned there. It was built on a stem wall foundation, which I had never done, didn't know anything about, right? It had a septic tank, had never built a house on a septic tank, had to learn all this. But what it really made me do is just realize that, like, first of all, this isn't rocket science. Like, this is not that hard. And I'm a general contractor that hires subcontractors. I have to hire the best people and learn from them, right? These are people that aren't I wasn't hiring people that were my age that were doing their first ever septic tank. No, I hired a guy who had been doing them for 20 years, right? So it's really just putting the pieces of the puzzle together, right? And learning from all these people who have paved the way. So super, proud to say that, like, over the past 10 years, I've used one plumber, I've used one electrician, I've used one HVAC contractor, pretty much the same framer, concrete guys, roofers, and it's like there's a sense of loyalty there, and there's a sense of just like trusting that you have the right team in place, and then just rolling with it from there.
Man, that's awesome. I love that story, and I love the loyalty. I love the fact that you guys have grown together. Your team and you have grown up together. So let's fast forward a bit, because in the interest of time, let's talk a little bit about Sunchase. So you went from building this one custom home. You probably are maybe doing a little bit of real estate commission, but most of your work has become building and it sounds like managing units as well. Tell me a little bit about what Sunchase does.
Yeah, so today we are a full service development investment company. We, like you said in your intro, we own and manage 8 apartment communities totaling 314 units. We do a little bit of land development. We're about to do our first apartment ground up development, which is a 138 unit complex. But I think to tell the story of what Sunchase does a little bit, I'll try to give up the sped up version, of I had that custom home, and then I kept rolling out of the profits from those 3 homes, and I bought another lot. And then my now partners, who was the broker of the real estate company I worked for, who was the most successful developer in our area, had built all the high-rise condos. He took a chance on me, and probably more so just wanted to help me out because my dad passed, and that was my partner. And one day we were sitting there, and he's like, "Kyle, you're doing great." I would share him numbers, how fast I could build, and but I still couldn't get a loan at the bank, right? I was just rolling off that $200,000 loan that my dad had given me, and I kept rolling it. Um, and he said, "You're doing great, but you need to build 3 or 4 houses at a time." And I said, "Absolutely, but I need the money." And he said, "Well, show me some numbers." This is the developer broker. He said, "Show me some numbers and I'll take a look." So next day I'm sitting there, at the foot of his office door, like with a 3-ring binder, pro formas, and we ended up forming a partnership with him and his son, and we scaled it to where we built 3 homes the first year, and then the most we did was about 30 homes in 1 year. And yeah, so I had started to learn this concept of, who not how, and buy back your time, and how to build a business. And as much as my dad means to me and has meant to me and is so crucial to the foundation, I also learned a lot of things that I didn't want to do. And he was so in the business, right? Like nothing could happen without him. Like he had a great crew and great guys, but he was always right there giving the direction, lining things out. When he had to come home, he had to do estimates and take out plans. And my mom, it caused a strain sometimes in their relationship because it was just they had to do everything. And so I came across this book called Traction, right? EOS, when I was like 22. And I was like, this is how I'm going to set up my business. I want to really lean in, and I want to grow a big business. Like I don't have any interest in doing a couple $1,000,000 a year. Like I want to grow into across states and across the country eventually. And so the only way to do that is through people. Right. And so that's when I had to learn my leadership skills, and really build out a team. And so we scaled a real estate sales team, built 30 homes. I started buying investment properties, and apartments. And then just this year, I said, I'm doing a lot of things decent. What would happen if we just honed in on one niche and went all in on it? And that's what we're doing today, which is buying existing apartment buildings and managing them, renovating them and managing them, and then building new apartments to hold.
Nice, man. There's so many powerful lessons there. Obviously, you've gotten some help along the way, but you've really made this your own. You're a lifelong learner, it sounds like. So you're figuring from off the backs of others, the experience of others with the books that you've been reading, the books that you talked about, and really, I want to highlight your business partner. I don't know if he's still your business partner, but he also took a chance on a young guy. And I have, again, lots of conversations with people's kids who are coming out of college. I also have lots of conversations with people who are in a mentor capacity. And I encourage them to extend a hand out to help people who are coming behind them. Excuse me. I want them to extend a hand to people coming up behind them and help them become the entrepreneurs and the badass leaders that they were meant to be as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no question that I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for guys like Robert Rinke, or my dad, but I will say to flip the script on this side of it, like being the guy that someone takes a chance on, I think that there's a mentor for everybody, but it comes down to how bad do you want it and what kind of action do you take, right? Because there's so many people like yourself who are in this position that are further along in their journey and you want to give back, right? But you don't want to give more than the action that people are taking, right?
Mm.
And so when you find somebody that's just like obsessed with like creating results and who's just like bringing the energy and the ideas and yeah, they might fail sometimes or make bad decisions, but man, you don't have to question whether they're showing up and getting after it. Those are the people that people want to mentor, right? And they're not as common as you would think. Like even in my position, I'm only 31, but I've got over a decade's worth of experience. So people have started coming to me and it's amazing. I'll give some advice or hey, take some action, do this and send it back to me. No follow-up. Never hear from them for a month or 2 months. And it's like, you question sometimes like how bad do people want it?
They probably didn't really want it. That's fascinating. Well, hey, let's shift topics a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about your podcast that we mentioned earlier, Legacy Builders. You asked me a very great question. Now I'm going to throw it right back at you. Tell me some of the what qualities highlight what make a great leader. What are some of the great qualities?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I'm actually going to give a shout out, shameless plug. I wrote my first book. It's called Built to Lead, and we're gearing up to launch it by the end of the year. And it's really about faith based principles in leadership. And I truly think that great leaders have a lot of different traits, right? There's not any like just a couple, but just off the cuff, I think great leaders lead by example, right? I think that they bring great energy to the table no matter how they feel because they're the tone setter, right? I think that great leaders are vision casters, are some people that can just think way bigger than your normal person and then be able to put that into a story and that excites people, right? To where they want to be a part of your vision. And then it gradually changes because once you start vision casting and you even think that you're thinking big, you attract this great people who make it possible. In order to keep those great people, you have to then cast a larger vision where their vision plays a part in it. A couple things I think are what I just shared, right? Vision and energy. I think that it's also about your mindset. I think the greatest leaders have the best mindsets.
Tell
So
me more.
I yeah, I mean, there's so much. Great leaders are readers, right? That's an easy one. They just have this insatiable appetite to learn, to 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 get knowledge, and just to really like become the best version of themselves. I was reading. I Think and Grow Rich is my all-time favorite book. And I think it really matters about when you come across that book. Like if I came across that book now with as many books as I've read, it might not hit as home. But when I was 21 years old and I came across that book, I was like, oh my gosh, behind the Bible, this is amazing. But I just opened it before this podcast, and there was a section about that I had underlined that it said, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power, right? It's the action that you're taking on what you're learning. Are you sharing it with your team? Are you bringing others up to keep leveling the playing field? I think great leaders have passion. I think that they're fully committed to whatever they're doing. Like there's not like a this week I'm gonna go be all in. No, this is a sacrifice, right? Not a lot of people want to sit in the seat as a leader or a founder or whatever, right? There's a true cost of leadership. There just is.
I love it. And Kyle, you definitely have some passion, man. I can feel it emanating through the screen here. That's awesome. Awesome. Appreciate you saying that. Hey, by the way, I thought Who's Your Mike was your favorite book. What is this?
Who's your Mike? Yeah, shout out. Great
There
book.
you go. There you go. Hey, we're at the point of the show where I want to ask you about your unlocking move. I know we've talked about a couple. Again, this is a key pivotal moment or decision point that changed your life or your career trajectory. So it sounds like we've talked about a couple of them. You want to highlight anyone in particular?
I think the unlocking move, like the biggest domino to fall was probably taking action on a deal that required debt. So my dad had taught me that debt was bad. Like his dad had taught him that, and they were both successful in their own right, did good, however, when I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I learned that there's such thing as good debt, and so the first apartment complex, a separate partner who's I'm still partnered with today, we bought a 14-unit apartment complex when I was 25 years old. And that was probably the biggest move because it showed me that, first of all, you can build wealth, how you build wealth, right? And that's through assets, right? And that's through compounding your money over time. And so that would probably be the biggest move that I could think of on top of all the other things is taking a leap in a deal that I didn't know how it was going to play out. I didn't know if we were overpaying. It ended up being a home run, 14-unit apartment complex.
Well, so what you just taught me was when you have an opportunity, you have to take the risk. And a lot of people have opportunities, but they don't take the risk. They don't take the chance. They don't make the move. And so what could have been an unlocking move for them is not. So it's just something that goes by. And so many people sit there wistfully and saying, oh man, Kyle's lucky. I wish I could have an opportunity to buy an apartment complex. The reality is you do. Just not many people seize the opportunity.
Yeah, there's a quote that I've got actually right above that I just heard last week, and it was, "Weak men wait for opportunities, strong men make them." And we all have a lot of the same opportunities, right? If you're willing to take action on them. So that would be my biggest piece of advice: just take action.
Well, that's the whole purpose of this podcast is to help people identify those opportunities. It could be unlocking moves for them and to take the opportunity to seize the opportunity when they get the chance. Okay. So I like to have what I call the listener's advocate question. This came from my friend Rod Kurtz, who's my producer who passed a few months ago. And that is, if I'm listening to this podcast and have the opportunity to whisper in Kurt's ear, what kind of question would I want to ask of Kyle? And here's the one that I came up with. It's kind of actually maybe a couple of questions. The first one is, dude, you went to Florida State. You guys had such a crappy year last year. You had national title hopes. You ended up 2-10, but you opened the season 2 weeks ago by kicking Alabama's ass. Are you still on top of the moon? Tell me how you feel right now.
Oh, we're so back. Tommy Castellanos for Heisman, national champs or bust. We're back.
I
It's
love
the
it.
Jordan Travis revenge season.
I love it. Hey, here's the other one that I was going to come up with, and that is you've got 3 boys, as I talked about earlier on the podcast. Their names are Clark, Camden, and Brooks. Let me tell you why that's interesting to me. First of all, my dad, his mom grew up in a town in Arkansas called Camden, Arkansas, and at one point I had an idea to name a kid Camden. I think it's a cool name. So first of all. Second of all, my wife's maiden name is Brooks. Okay. And so I wanted a kid named Brooks. I thought it was a cool name. She didn't like it as much. She made it sound like it was like her, hyphenated name or whatever. And so when the first kid, we didn't even have a conversation about it. But when the second one was born, I said, let's name him Brooks. And she said, oh no, I've got a better name. I tell you what, if we have a third, thinking it would never happen, if we have a third, we'll name him Brooks. So my kids are Luke and Brady. And then the third one was going to be Brooks. So we're talking about names, bantering back and forth. And I'm like, it's Brooks. Like, why are we even having this conversation? We agreed before his name is going to be Brooks. I don't know if your wife lies. My wife lies. So in her mind, she wanted
my wife never lies if she's listening. Ever lies.
Mine wanted our third one to be Gage. And so we go into like the last, couple of weeks, Gage and Brooks. I thought I was going to be right. She thought she was going to be right. Neither one of us would give in. So our son, who's now named Bennett, went about at least 48 hours, I think, as baby boy Wilkin before we figured it out. So
That's awesome.
Funny story. There you go. I love those names, Clark, Camden, and Brooks.
Yeah, absolutely. Great story.
So I like to ask one more question, Kyle, and that is basically a trick question. But tell me one thing that you're never asked and you either wish people would ask you or you're secretly glad that they don't.
Yeah, no, great question. What question, probably, and this is a common theme on my podcast, which I don't hear it in most of others, and it's just what role does your faith play in your business. And this is something that I just recently, probably in the past, call it 12, 24 months, have gotten more comfortable sharing about just how important my faith is in my business. I think God has all of us here exactly where he wants us. And I think that we're here for a reason. That, you see all this craziness that goes on in the country, and it's not a left versus right. It's good versus evil. And, the country needs more Jesus, right? Our businesses need more Jesus in them. And so that would be the thing, that I would like to share. And that'd be my main message to get across. I think that some people have a gift or are called to ministry and be a pastor for a church. And some of us have an even bigger burden, and that's leading a business, right? And when you're leading a business, your church, your ministry is your workplace, right? And so don't shy away from sharing about how important it is. Our first core value that's listed on our website is faith in action, right? And we act boldly, guided by integrity and mission, right? And if you have that as your guiding light, you're gonna treat your residents right. You're gonna pay your vendors on time. You're gonna do the right thing when it gets difficult, when deals fall apart, or question marks, like where it can get like a little gray area. No, if your faith truly is your guiding light, you're gonna do the right thing, and you're gonna attract the right people. And so that would be what I would want to share.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Here's a question that I had come up with in case you didn't have one at hand. And that is, tell me how you live your faith in your business. So we were thinking the same thing. And the second follow-up is, tell me how you wish you lived your faith in your business. Are you fully living to the extent that you want to?
It's a great question. I think the answer is no, never fully. Like, I try to share it, with my team and in my messages, and share the importance. I try not to be pushy, and there's a fine line, I think. Like, it's like, oh, you're not trying to be pushy. Well, you sure are open about it, sharing it on the podcast. But it's really just speaking from my experience. There's been dips in when I haven't had as strong of a faith, and what has brought me back, and what has got me more, energized for life. And that is my faith. So, no, I don't think that I'm 100%. There are times where I do succumb to whatever it might be, just in the moment, right? Or feeling down or whatever. Let these, demons in your head, like, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
Hey man, incremental progress. Nobody's perfect. Don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. Nobody's perfect. I appreciate you sharing. Where can we find out more about what you're doing? LinkedIn, your podcast we talked about. Where else can we find out about what Kyle McGee's doing?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn. Just Kyle McGee. My business website is sunchasepg.com. Sunchasepg.com. And then Legacy Builders with Kyle McGee, that we're pretty active. We're releasing about 2 a week.
Hey man, on that note, we're going to wrap this puppy up. I'm going to invite everybody to go please like and subscribe wherever you consume your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, the whole bit. We actually have a video version of this that's going to be on YouTube. So I'm glad your hair looks good. And we'll have a bunch of shorts out on Instagram and YouTube here pretty shortly. So Kyle McGee, thank you so much for joining me on Unlocking Moves.
Thanks for having me on, Kurt.
If you're an entrepreneur and you think you might have outgrown a member of your team, or maybe you've got a mic, as we talked about in Who's Your Mic, check out this quiz at who'syourmic.com/quiz. That's who'syourmic.com/quiz.